Hey everybody, it's Doom here from Dungeons and Doom Biscuit, and I have here that Hercules miniature I just did up. I forgot, I have a whole other video on here that I did not post, so I had to take a photo for that and post that. I want to get some tape on here because it's a little gunky and tacky. It's moist in here, humid, and cold. Bad combo. It's pneumonia in here. Okay. So, there's some big problems I see when I dry brushed him. He's got a terrible seam on both sides, but he's a hero click. And he's got this giant gap where his arm isn't seated in correctly that I saw before. So we're going to try to fix this stuff. So I'm starting out here with some barbarian flesh. And I want this to be fairly moist. I got spike webs on my brush. Damn it, I dropped my brush on the ground. Alright, hold on. We'll restart. Okay. So as I said, my brush is fairly moist. And I'm going to do his flesh with it. And if I need to add more paint, I will, if I see that it's a little bit thin or a little bit thick. I want to go lighter than I want my skin tone to be, because I'm going to be using a wash on him to make him a little dingier and grimdarky. And I'm trying to rely on the natural tones that were somewhat created by the light and dark of his undercoat, but not so that it's significant, because we are going to be using a wash. Now, with Army Painter paints, unless there's something I'm specifically going for, I don't usually use a wet palette for at all, okay? It's just specifically because I have some weird idea of how I want to paint him that this is happening. Their paints just aren't too thick and chunky to where I can't get the same consistency just with brush moisture usually. Now, because we have that gap in there, I think that's going to be noticeable no matter what we do. I don't think that's going to be something I can hide with the paint job. It's super noticeable. See it? There's a lot of drama with this sculpt. You know, like I said, I should have spent some time prepping the mini, but this is going to be a NPC or a bad guy or some kind of something in the story that's going to be interesting and memorable. But it's probably not going to be a player character. I wouldn't guess. A little thick on his chest. I'm going to get some of that off. Get my brush wet and just kind of try to thin that out some. Here we go. Okay. I'll make sure I get down in the cracks around his neck that are real good, so it doesn't look bad. Getting those deep spots there. Make that flesh colored. Alright, so now I'm going to get my next color. And I'm going to use, I have a grayish brown color called Dark Stone. I'm going to use this for his boots and maybe his gloves. Okay, that's not mixed properly. This doesn't seem to be. There we go. Anybody see that new Scream movie yet? I really want to see it. I haven't had an opportunity. I have one of Lady Doom's hairs in my mouth. So I think this is a good color for the tunic. I need to... It was supposed to be for the boots. Damn it, Chris. Ah, well. Mr. Stupid Pants. Supposed to be for the boots. Just got to do a little bit more cleanup work there. Where I got a little sloppy. Okay. Alright, for his boots, I'm going to use a dark gray then, I guess. This is called Necromancer Cloak. And I don't think we're going to need to thin this down. It doesn't seem mixed up very well. We'll mix it up ourselves. There we go. So I've been DMing or GMing or whatever you want to call it, running games for 34 years, 34 and a half years, something like that. And then there's an opportunity, if you guys don't know about it, that you DM, to go DM in a castle, and you don't get paid a super amount for it, but they do cover your travel. And there's like activities you can do, like archery and fencing and shit, right on the arm too. Of course I did. So there's some opportunities there that are pretty neat. And I'm due for a break from the world anytime now. So my wife and I have been talking about maybe it would be healthy for me to go do that. Physically, I'm in better shape than I've been in a few years. I've lost a lot of weight. And, I mean, I wasn't that fat, but I had put on some weight. If you looked at the early videos on my channel, I was pretty heavy for a while there. But just by making some sacrifices in my pleasure of what I ate with the help of some medication for my blood sugar and my cholesterol. I'm pretty healthy for the moment. I got a pretty big, when I had my stroke, it was a pretty big wake-up call because I didn't want to leave my children without a father. My youngest are 8 and 10. And they need me around for a bit. And apparently my older sons like me a little bit as well and would like me to be around a bit more too. Just some areas that I just don't feel good about that skin tone being full enough. I'm just going to clean those up. But if you notice, family vacations are never relaxing. You have to be hyper vigilant at your children and their behavior and their safety, and you got to meet timetables. And so anytime we take any kind of break, for me it doesn't feel like a break because it's like I'm an ex-soldier and I'm always worried about bad stuff happening. So I'm always on top of everybody and up their butts. Well, we talked about it. It's not a for sure thing. It might not happen, but it looks like it might happen. That I might be going to Europe or the British Isles for 2 weeks. For 10 days of DMing and a day and a half of visiting an old army buddy who married a British woman for whatever reason. He says love. I think it was love of accent. But hey, what do I know? Because she's super, mouthy. It's none of my business, but she is mouthy as shit. Like, everything you say, she has something to say to. So this is called Monster Brown. It's a light brown I'm going to use for the belt. If you're wondering why we're painting so slow today, I'm off tomorrow, and I'm not in a hurry. I haven't got a video out because of the way I've been working. But I want to get my fun craft time in too tonight, because tomorrow's my game night. We're going to send this out. We're going to mix a little bit of that in with it. We're going to carefully set a base tone. For his hair and beard. Now you'll notice that he has a little thin, headband. We are not going to try and do anything with that. We're going to let the wash just make that darker. We're going to take this color here and mix that, and we're going to use that to make a color for the backpack. Get a little bit of that gray in there. Okay. We're going to steal that same color and mix a little bit more of that gray in. Oops, got my hand all up in that shit. We're going to do the hilt of the sword in that, or not the hilt, but the cross guard of the sword. And it's going to be a little bit different color than his glove there, but not the end of the world different. Then I'm going to get that darker color and mix that in there a little bit. I'm just going to do a base coat on the sword, dragging it up. Trying to get rid of any of the dry brush pattern that was left behind. Okay. I'm going to get that same weird color we just mixed. I'm going to do his little circle on his belt. Alright, that's way too wet and it's not capturing it. So let's see if I can... No, I can't. It's just making a mess. Alright, we're going to get a black and do that circle real quick. Here, got him. I get this back out. I'm gonna get a lighter tone. This is called skeleton bone. I'm going to get a brush that we did not use any water in. And I'm going to create a lighter highlight tone for that flesh. I'm going to drag it. On some of these areas that need to really pop, so that when I do the wash, his muscles are pretty great. And that definitely cleans up that kind of orangish tone that we don't want to keep. We don't want to go overboard with this though. We want to keep it. And then we want to make his hair blonde. So to make his hair blonde, I'm going to get this desert yellow. I just need a drop of it, but it's not been used in a while. And you can't just use, normally you can't just use like a plain yellow when you want to do this. So I have that sub-flesh tone. And I'm going to get a tiny bit of this yeller and that sub-flesh tone. Okay. I'm going to do one quick rub along with that. And lighten it up. I'm going to be real careful in the beard. I'm not doing a whole lot of detail on the beard. Just lightening it up a little bit. Okay. I need a tiny bit of that subtone to lighten his nose up. His nose is just a little bit bright. A little bit dark, I mean. Okay, so now we're going to get just the yellow that we used over the light. And my brush is wet. Okay, I have just the yellow. Then I'm going to tap around on his hair. And blondify it. So before we put the wash on, there's some things we need to do. We need a metallic for the blade. I'm getting a little bit of gunmetal. Make sure my brush is damp. I'll run it smoothly up that blade. I'm not going to come back and do edges on this blade. It doesn't really, it's not going to sell anything big on it. And then I'm going to get a little bit on that hand guard. And make sure I hit the front and back of that. I'm going to wipe a lot of that off. I'm going to rub that emblem on his belt a little bit with it. Just like that. And then I'm going to get a fractional brush. He's got some little nubbins on his belt. I'm going to hit those little nubbins just with a tiny dab of silver. And he's got little nubbins on his boots. I'm going to hit those little nubbins. Give me your nub, your nub, your nub. It's the Billy Joel version. No nubs on the gloves. Doesn't look like there's nubs on the gloves. We're not going to do his eyes yet. We're going to paint his base dark brown. Let's get the Walmart brown. This is called Burnt Umber. And I generically use this for fantasy bases as a base coat for dirt. Good enough. Now, we could have been done with this paint job. We could have used speed paints and had it done in 20 minutes or less, maybe. Get that mostly dry. Get a lighter brown. I'm using just melted chocolate. This is from the Walmarts, too. I'm just going to grab a different brush to use for this part. I'm going to drag that around there and create some variation. I'm going to get that dark grayish brown that I had earlier. I'm going to do this rock with that. Oh, there's something in my paint there. I'm going to do that rock with that as a base coat, then I'm going to come back and hit that with a lighter color in a minute. Get a lighter gray. Any lighter gray will do it. This is elephant gray from the Walmarts. Then we need something to do the wash with. This is a ricotta cheese lid. We want to make sure our miniature is dry for sure. The base is not as important. I'm going to get a bigger kind of brush to do this with. I have this this brush. I call it, I don't really call it anything. So I'm going to use a flesh wash or a soft tone. I think I'll use soft tone. And these quick shades are really good. Putting 3 drops of that. And 1 drop of this medium. Oh, there you go. Oh, shit. 1 drop of this speed paint medium. So it's not quite as violent looking. Not violent looking, but aggressive. I'm going to swirl that in there real quick and saturate my brush. And then I'm going to quickly distribute that on the miniature. Attempting to get all of him. But what I don't want to do is reactivate paint. So I don't want to spend one's time in one spot messing around too long. And once it's sitting there for about 25-30 seconds, I do not want to rub it around. I want to kind of just like stroke it and rip it off. Okay. And then I'm going to get this cloth and just lightly dab some of the areas where I just went a little too hard. Lightly dab so I don't pull paint off with it. And I just want to smack his face a little bit. Dab it up his sword, leaving some of that on there, but getting a lot of it off. I just got a couple spots that I really went overboard. That's okay. He's still kind of blonde, but I darkened it up a bit much, so I'm just going to dab around on his head lightly and clean that up. fractional brush, an off-white called Mummy Robes. If you go a little big, like I just did, too easy. You get your base coat skin tone, the darker skin tone. And you shrink those eyes back down. And then you get your secondary color that you use to highlight your skin tone. Just come back and clean up anything you made too dark, like his cheekbones. And I'm just going to touch a little bit on his upper chest here. Lighten that up just a tiny bit. Maybe up here on his arms, just a tiny bit. Just using that fractional brush. It's not what it's designed for. I'm going to get a little bit of that yellow. Try to make sure I touch that mustache a little better. There we go. Still not super happy with that eye. It's a little thick, a little chunky. Okay. Make him looking down just a little bit. Down and to his left a tiny bit. I'm really unhappy with this. I just need a little bit of cleanup work. But I'm not happy with my paint job. I've been so used to doing speed paints. I've gotten lazy, and the sculpt is super bad too. I don't know if I could be happy with it as I look at it. I do want to lighten up his chest a little bit more though. And maybe on his upper arms some. And that's fine. You don't have to be happy the first try. I'm just adding some jagged, rough texture. Not texture, but like it looks like texture, kind of, when you use this lighter off color and just drag it along there in spots. It's a little shiny too, which is making it hard for me to see. If I clear coat them, it'll look easier to tell. Sword's boring. Damn it. All right. So with no moisture in my brush hardly at all, it's just damp enough to keep the paint flowing nice. Taking the top third of my brush and using this blue metallic. And I'm getting my brush damp, real damp. Like that. And I'm dragging that down along the next third. Just like that. And then I'm getting my brush wet more to where it's barely catching that. Wiping a lot of that out. I'm going to do that bottom third, dragging that down into that. Okay. Now, I'm going to dry this with the air gun on light on low. And I have a gold sparkle paint somewhere. I once had a gold sparkle paint, now I cannot find it. Which color was it? There it is. Glitter gold. Now look at this. It's a clear with a gold tint to it. And it's got gold flecks in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get a lot of the substrate out and use just the gold flecks. And make myself a really easy transition to make my sword look a little more exciting. The rest of the miniature sucks. There's no reason the sword can't be a little bit cool. And we could do a little more detail work on those gloves for damn sure. I'm getting a light gray. Or a light brown maybe, I don't know, light gray. Getting this ash gray. We're gonna make these gloves pop. And make these boots pop too. And that kind of undoes the silver we put on the boots, on those little pop out bumps, but we're going to get some brown, dark brown in that same gray. More dark brown. There we go. Look at that. Perfect. I'm going to hit the backpack with that. Give it a little bit of oignon. His butt, his thighs, up onto his pecs. And lighten those up, and that looks a little better. I can live with that. Still not happy with that rock. I'm going to get a little bit of that light gray. Really go over the top and ruin that, damn it. Started getting confident and rushed. Okay. Okay, I'm going to air gun this dude real quick. Then we're going to do black on the base and we'll be done. Long paint job. So for my black, I'm just going to use black. I'm using a mini brush, size 1. A damp mini brush, size 1. I'm going to come around and do the outside of my base first. Then, on the areas on the top of the base that have no texture, where no baking soda is, I'm just going to paint those real smooth black too. And it's got to be a little bit damp so it doesn't leave brush marks. This is a fun thing I do to kind of show the difference of where the fantasy world ends and reality starts. I've been doing this for a few years now. And we'll hit that with the airbrush, then we'll put some flock on here. Not the airbrush, the hot air gun. To make his base a little more bow. Get some clear glue. Toothpick. Oh, my clear glue is super watery. Okay. I'm going to drag that around. Make things kind of interesting. Just some jaggedy spots where I want flock. No major plan. Okay. And that should be good. Something like that. Alright, I'm still unhappy. But I wasn't setting out to do like an epic paint job. I was setting out just to make something tabletop ready, and it turned into this project of a massive disappointment. And that's okay. And you get to the point where you're overpainting. You're doing stuff that makes no difference. And that's when you stop. Like right now, me going back and trying to yellow up his beard a little bit more. This is when you stop. You don't do this. You either start from scratch or you call it good enough. What I'm doing right now is not recommended. You don't just keep painting to paint. This can only bring heartache. All right, so I'm going to call that done. Thanks for watching. If you want some more amazing, terrible painting tips, just play this video in reverse. I'm sure you'll get a gem better than anything you learned while you were watching this. Also, like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell icon, and all the happy crappy that helps the channel grow. Do me a favor, leave comments. I like those. I do answer those. I make time for that. I seldom miss one. If I do, I feel terrible. Just let me know. Doom, on such and such video, you were an asshole, and you didn't acknowledge that I took time to leave you a comment, and I'll run there and try to fix it. Until next time, thanks for watching.